Hello, my name is Sarah and I am your chakra coach. On this podcast, we'll be exploring how the chakra system can help guide you to grow your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, leading you closer to your highest self. Hello, welcome to the show. As always, I am so glad you're here and I could not be more grateful that you're going to spend a few minutes with me today. We are talking about something I'm really bad at, which is not my favorite thing to do, but sometimes the thing we want to do least is the thing we need to do most. And for me, this week, that was talk to Alara Sage about being playful and how that can unlock our creativity. If you're anything like me, you forget exactly how much creativity plays a role in your life. I always think that because I'm not painting or sculpting or whatever, that I'm not creating, but I am. And so are you. I create this podcast every week. I'm a singer and dancer. I create yoga sequences for my classes. All of these are things that start out as an idea and then take form in material reality, which is all creativity is. And you do it too. It might be at work, or it could be playing with your kids, or manifesting something, which requires imagination. And again, if you're anything like me, sometimes you struggle with creativity. And Alara is here to help us unlock that part of us that can get blocked up in our sacral, heart, and third eye chakras. Her suggestion is that what we're missing is playfulness, joy, bliss, the ability to be in the moment, in flow. And I'll tell you, I think she's right. You'll hear in this conversation how much I struggle imagining what playfulness looks like when you're a grown-up. Fortunately, she has some steps for us to take to tap into our own playfulness and let go of judgment around it. Playfulness allows us to access joy, love, and peace, and it lets us release stored trauma so we can start to deeply heal on an energetic level. Alara Sage works with ambitious female leaders and professionals who are highly successful but feel unfulfilled and lonely in love, life, and relationships. She helps them reawaken their sexual power as a woman so that they can magnetize deep, intimate connection, pleasure, and wealth without sacrifice. Alara is an intuitively gifted mentor, teacher, and healer who coaches provocatively and soulfully. She has over 15 years of experience helping others reignite and transform their own lives. More importantly, she has walked the walk. Alara is passionate about helping women become impactfully present and experience greater influence, power, and bliss by embracing their woman. All the links to find out more about Alara will be in the show notes, her Instagram and website, and all that good stuff. And if you want to connect with me, my links are in the show notes as well, Instagram and Facebook, Your Chakra Coach. Here is our conversation about healing and playfulness. Before we get into this episode, I want to share something with you I found that might be helpful to you on your healing journey. It's a podcast called Healing Meditation for Women from the Women's Meditation Network. It's a weekly meditation guided by intuitive medium Reiki master Tina Conroy. There are meditations carefully and intentionally created around spiritual and energetic symbols, including moon cycles, animal guides, angels, astrology, crystals, the seasons, and more. There's even one for balancing your chakras, and you know I love that. Meditation is really one of the best healing modalities. It's my go-to, and I recommend it every chance I get. But I know that we don't always want to just sit still in silence. That can be incredibly difficult. These guided meditations offer a way to easily incorporate the practice into your life. And there are literally hundreds to choose from, so you can always find one that suits what you need in the moment. Plus, it's incredibly simple to just press play on the podcast episodes and spend a few minutes taking care of yourself. And the Healing Meditation for Women podcast is like getting a personal healing session for free. So just search for Healing Meditation for Women wherever you're listening to this podcast, follow it, and pick an episode to try today. It's simple, free, and healing.
Well, welcome, Alara. I'm so grateful that we could finally make this interview happen. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing?
Hi, Sarah. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. So I love what you do because I think it's so unique and so needed in the world. And I know I mentioned it a little bit in the intro, but would you just give the listeners just kind of a taste of who you are and what you do?
A taste, yes. So I help women to really reconnect, reawaken their power, their authenticity, their magic within themselves, and really bring the power of orgasm, of bliss, of ecstasy into every single moment of their life.
Mm-hmm. And today, sort of in that vein, we're going to talk about playfulness, which like I said earlier, I'm like, I recognize when my kittens are playful, but or when children are playful, but what on earth what is playfulness? What does it look like in a grown up?
I think it's such a great question and such an important question, right? Because just as you said, we can say, okay, that child is being playful, that kitten is being playful. But what does playfulness mean for an adult? So, first, I would like to, let the listeners know that it's really unique to each person. But you can connect to, like, what does playfulness feel like? Okay, so for one, playfulness is very spontaneous. It has this energy of you really being in the moment. You know those times where time seems to just stop, just seems to slow down, and you feel lit up, you feel enjoy, and you feel this space of everything is kind of just flowing through you in this delightful and you could say playful way. So I like to bring the listeners into the feeling of playfulness rather than into some conceptual understanding that, oh, yay, hey, playfulness is you skipping down the road. Playfulness is you dancing. Playfulness, because, yeah, while that is all expressions of playfulness, it is more an energy of feeling and being in the present moment. So that feeling, and we can connect to that feeling most definitely through our animals, through our children, of when you're in that energy with them. What does that feel like in your body? That is a much
Yes.
stronger pointer for each individual, is what playfulness means to them.
I think that's so interesting because you talked about sort of being in the flow and like in the zone. And that's a thing people talk about with like work a lot or, things like that. But I think what we're saying is that sense of being in the zone, being in flow, doesn't have to be connected to productivity or making money or doing something like that. It could simply be flow for flow's sake. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yes, and it absolutely can also be connected to work because what we'll talk about in a little bit, this is very much creative energy.
I was just going to say that because we talk about being in the flow when we're
Yes.
creating something.
Yes.
And that can be anything. I always think people think it has to be art or something like that, but anything that you're creating where you're just taking sort of, I hate to say nothing, but just like taking an idea and then making something exist in the world that didn't exist before. And that can feel very much in the zone and playful. That, even if it is work technically, if you create things for work, but like, yeah, that's so interesting. So playfulness in your definition is definitely more of a sensation in your body of just feeling really connected to yourself, which I think is what you were talking about earlier about reconnecting to who you really are. And playfulness is a way to do that. I am not good at playing, I feel like. I feel like I didn't grow up like with a good solid sense of playfulness, so I've had to develop it as an adult. Um, and that has been a challenge, and I'm sure a lot of people that you work with have that same experience.
Absolutely, including myself. But yes, my clients are very much, as you, I'm sure, deal with as well. Like we are often leading the people who are going through the same journey that we have. And myself and my clients, are not playful people naturally. It's not
Yeah.
something like, oh, I know how to be playful, or even like I feel inspired to be playful. It's a process, through the process of working with my clients, it starts to become organic within them. They start to take those moments and be like, oh, I feel like there's an availability of playfulness right now. I'm going to let that actualize. I'm going to let that come into the physical reality. How does that look like? And they'll get that kind of that sense of like, ooh, do some dancing, or oh, do this, or oh, do that. And then they'll have that experience of playfulness again because it naturally desired to arise through them rather than some conceptual idea of, I need to go be playful.
Do you think that we all sort of have an innate capability for playfulness? Oh, I can tell by your face you definitely do. And that I was going to ask, is it more like taken out of us? Is it more covered up and buried? But yes, clearly you do. So talk about that.
Yes. So when I work with clients, it's always a surrendered space. I don't come with any expectation. However, what always happens is we always go back to 3 to 6 years of age because this is the time where we're becoming very emotional in our being and we're starting to really, really express and we're really becoming playful, right? We come out of that little like newborn phase and we're really moving into a very active toddler and young child. And what usually happens for our generation and our older generations is that that's not a really emotions are not really a safe space in our society
Mm.
just yet. And what do we call it? We call it the terrible twos. That's pretty
Oh,
self-explanatory. We have a terminology for threes too. I don't remember what it is.
it's the
And
same
so
kind
what
of thing. And I
happens?
always think it's really kind of sad. I'm like, let's not call our children terrible. I get it. But like thinking on that, I'm like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. But anyway, go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And so this is all, rooted in our sacral chakra, where our innocence is located, where our creativity is located, our creative energy, our Shakti, our Kundalini Shakti is where our sexual power and our connection is. And so, as we are developing through the chakras as a child, between this stage, we start to move into the sacral chakra. And that is a highly, highly creative space. I mean, again, if you look at young children, this is when they start to really use their imagination. They start to engage in their imagination. They start to take little figures and create a whole story right there before their eyes, right? Just coming out of their head. So yes, we're innately innocent. We're innately sexual and we're innately very, very playful and creative beings. And it's just simply through our process of being told that our emotions aren't safe because the sacral chakra is also connected
Mm.
to our emotional body, that hey, stop crying, stop yelling, stop acting like that, stop, be quiet, whatever it was, that we've shut that down and we've determined that that part of ourselves is not safe.
And then that we carry that sort of initial wound to that energy center with us into adulthood. And therefore, we associate the playfulness and the creativity of that chakra with the unsafeness of the emotions. Would you say that's a pretty
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if
solid?
we necessarily like equate it, but it's not available because the
Okay.
shame. When I work with clients, we all carry shame in that chakra, and
Yeah.
it's something that most of us are not aware of. So when I work with clients, that's the first thing that we start to really go into and open up. And it's amazing how when you transmute shame, which is just shifting of that energy back into love, how quickly the creativity lights up, how quickly the playfulness, how quickly the pleasure, again, just naturally and organically desires to arise because it is truly who we are.
Right. Because it is the authentic place in us as opposed to this place that we've started living because we felt we had to based on societal, cultural, familial expectations. Um,
Yes.
yeah, that's so interesting. So you find that the sacral chakra is the first place. We talked about three creative energy centers with playfulness. And to me, that sounds like the first one. It makes perfect sense. When you think of the next one, where do you go in your work?
Yeah. So as far as like what playfulness, when we're in playfulness, what it does is it activates those three creator centers. And this is something, creator centers was something I learned a while ago. And I mean, many years ago, I should say. And it was kind of just in the back of my process. And then it came really forward. And I really was taught by my higher self the process of conscious creation and something I teach my clients. And so the sacral chakra is one of the three centers. So when we are engaged in playfulness, we activate these three centers. So again, sacral chakra, we're activated in our presence. For one, we're very present in the moment. We're activated in our playfulness. We're activated in our creativity, and the second chakra that is the three creator centers is the heart. So we're in
Mm-hmm.
playfulness, we're lit up in joy, and we are very, very connected to our innate soul and even to stillness, which is a very intriguing concept to understand how we can be in stillness and in action at the same time. But we're really in joy and love when we are
Mm-hmm.
playful. So we activate the heart in joy and love. And the third creative center is our third eye, and the beautiful thing about the third eye is it's connected to our ability to not only receive light, aka information, but also to project light. And this is through our imagination. Our imagination
Yes.
is an incredible tool. And so when we're playful, our imagination is lit up and we are engaging in all of the potentialities that are available, whether we don't have to be seeing them all or experiencing them all, but we are connected to them and we are casting them into our present moment through our imagination.
That's beautiful. First, I just want to say that. But I guess if you were, tell us why it's so important for us to be playful and to reconnect to the playful parts of ourselves, because I feel like it's something that we're so willing to let go, and we're so willing to let go of it and push it away that it's hard to even see the importance of it when we try to come back to us. Tell me why it's so important to be playful.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So, without getting really deeply into it, it's about our nervous system.
Mm,
And so, playfulness is one of the energies that is deeply nourishing to our being. And again, it opens up our ability to really experience pleasure and even move into deeper, relaxed states of our nervous system, of which is really like where we access joy, love, peace, deep, deep inner peace of our nervous system, which equates to our bodies, our experiences, and our life. But what playfulness does is it kind of bridges this space of stillness of our nervous system, where our nervous system is very, very relaxed, very, very open, and has a very high capacity to it, to anxious and tense and agitated, irritated, which is the state that most people's nervous systems are in. Humans right now are currently in a highly addictive state of fight or flight. And that terminology can kind of throw people because they're like, well, I don't feel like fighting or flighting.
yeah, I did a
But
whole
when
series about that earlier this year. And people were
oh,
like,
wonderful. Well, then,
oh, that's what that means. I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
it's not technically like punching somebody in the face. It could be,
Or
but it
running
doesn't,
away.
or running away. Like it doesn't have to be either of those things. But yes, it's an activation of the nervous system. So, but that's so interesting.
Yes.
So, playfulness is an activation of the nervous system to help us relieve stress. I mean, would you say you can't be stressed and playful at the same time? Like
Absolutely.
those two states don't exist simultaneously?
Yes, absolutely. And so what it does is because when we are like when my clients, they come to me, they all have, agitated, irritated, traumatized nervous systems. And I
Don't we
invite all
all?
listeners to listen to your previous episode because it's really, really important that we understand how important our nervous system is. And so as we, work with them and we release that trauma, the thing about it is when you're in a tense state, it's really powerful to use movement, to use physical movement to release that energy. And so, a lot of people are like, well, I try to meditate, but it's really, really challenging. And it is because they are in a state of tension, a state of mental tension, a state of emotional tension, a state of physical tension. And so play gives action, it gives the body movement, and it allows those energies to move through your body as you are being playful, which is an opening. So you are opening up, you are allowing yourself to engage in the moment, and at the same time, you are releasing the tension, you're releasing the stored trauma. So it's extremely nourishing and healing.
So, yeah, I was just going to say that exact word. Very healing, and not a waste of time, which is what I tend to think that a lot of us feel like, oh, I shouldn't be being playful. I should be doing laundry. I should be getting prepped for my presentation next week. And instead, if we're really interested in truly healing our bodies, healing our nervous systems, then playfulness is going to be an indispensable modality for that opening, particularly of those three energy centers. But like I always say, none of them operate in a vacuum. So, it's going to be sort of healing and clearing for the entire system, which I think is just a rehash of what you just said, but it's really important for us to recognize that.
Yes.
So
And,
I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I just want to make one comment. I work with women who are really like high performing women. They are in corporate, they are really high performing, high achievers, ambitious, courageous women. And what they find through this process is as they open up and they engage in more playfulness, their work, their focus, their intentional space becomes so much more powerful and precise, and it comes again through them, whereas before they're kind of forcing it sometimes, right? Whereas when we give ourselves, like you said, that permission to disengage and be playful, when we come back in, there is more available to us, and so we become more powerful.
That makes perfect sense to me. When you say it like that, just makes perfect sense. I do wonder. So you say, this going through this process, is there like a 1, 2, 3 process? Is there, how do we even start to access our innate playful natures if we've spent so much time covering it up for, emotional safety or any other number of reasons?
Yes, again, wonderful question, Sarah. There's always a process, isn't there? And yes, there is. There is kind of like a 1, 2, 3. The first thing is always awareness, and I always invite people to invite yourself, because we could easily say, nope, I don't have shame, or I don't have that, or I don't feel that, or we're so quick to guard ourselves, and to really, we hold a lot of denial, which is very, very powerful. When you're in denial, you literally can't see. So instead of saying, no, I don't think that, or, it's much more powerful to be like, wow, okay, I invite myself to be shown, to see. I invite myself to see my shame, to see my inability to play. I invite myself to see where I am reluctant to open, to be vulnerable, to be playful, right? To be creative, where these things rub me the wrong way, or maybe I have resistance to them, or I don't feel safe in them. I invite myself to see. That's the first step, because awareness, as you know, is so powerful in and of itself. As soon as we are aware, which if you ask, you will see. It's always a funny thing with my clients, because we will find something and they're like, okay, here we go. They know that as soon as our awareness is drawn to something, the next week for them, they will be shown multiple different ways throughout their physical reality, the reflection of our physical reality, how that shows up in their life. And it's so beautiful, because they're just shown, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is again. Wow, like this is really actually quite a big deal for me. And so through that invitation and the awareness, you start the ball.
Do you have something to say that the world needs to hear? Of course you do. If you want to turn your ideas into a podcast, Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and even earn a little money. All in one place, for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I like it because it's easy to use and to get support when I need it. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
I think there's probably a certain amount of acceptance, self-acceptance in saying, yes, I do have shame and that is okay. And being aware of it and accepting that that is just a natural, normal part of, I think we have shame around having shame sometimes, and trying to realize that we don't have to fight it, that it is part of the human experience, and accepting it is a huge part of becoming aware of it. And maybe that's what you mean when you say people are in denial, that they would just rather not acknowledge that that's even a part of their own existence, because that's very painful, right? Especially if you have like high performing people, they're like, nope, that's not me. Anything that happened to me, I just put it in a little box and put it on the shelf and carry on. And trying to open up those little boxes full of things can really be painful, I think.
Yeah, it's painful if we perceive it as something that says that we're not good enough, right? Or we're not perfect, or there's
That
something
right there.
wrong with us, right? But if we understand, as you mentioned so beautifully, that it's what we've been taught, and currently it's a part of the human experience. But more importantly, what I would say is it is the portal back to your power, your authenticity,
Love
your
that.
your innate being. It is the portal. It is the door. So if you're willing to invite yourself to see it, when you see it and when you move through it, you will understand what I mean about it being a portal,
Mhm.
because it's behind our shame. It's underneath. Our shame is what covers up our most authentic, most orgasmic, most genius self. And so, yes, if we see it as, oh, I carry this, or I have this, or I have this, and that makes me less than,
Right.
absolutely, that's painful. But if we instead see, wow, I was given this, I was taught this, I took this on, I don't have to believe this anymore. This is empowerment. This is a space for me to transform. This is a space for me to radically shift my own being and thus my life. Then that is personal power.
Oh, I love it. You just gave it like a little flip, like a little reframe. Like, we're just gonna actually, what if we turn it on its side? Like, that's amazing. Okay, so step one, awareness and reframing things that we were given as uh, as trauma into something that is now our gift to empowerment. Lovely. What's next?
The next step,
The next step.
yeah, it's definitely like you were talking about, is that acceptance. So as we are aware of it, the willingness to really see. And I love that you brought that in, and I want to bring a little bit of a story in. I've always, not always, but most of my life, I should say, I have jogged because my body enjoys the process. I personally, however, have not. I never liked jogging. It always felt like a chore.
Isn't that funny?
And I've been doing it for so many years. And all the time that I would jog, I'd just be like, is this over yet? I'm so over this. Is it like staring at my clock, my watch, just being so done with it before I even began it. And one day my higher self came to me and said, this doesn't have to be so painful. And I was like, oh, please do tell. And my
Tell
higher
me
self
more,
said,
because I would love
yes.
that.
My self said it can actually be highly orgasmic. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm all ears. And my higher self taught me how to accept the moment and accept the pain and transform it into orgasm. And in full honesty, now most jogs that I do, which is regularly, I am orgasmic through my jogs. And
I
so
feel like
that
not a lot of
is,
people can say that.
I haven't yet met another, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some. And it's not like a runner's high. It's an orgasm from my body, from my yeah. Um, but that came through letting go because it's the tension that hurts,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So again, when we speak of that acceptance, it's the resistance. So as if you just breathe, like if you become aware of something in yourself, that shame or like, just the other day I was shown how so much of my life I've, like manipulated circumstances. Ah, manipulation. Damn. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
I've already seen that before. It's not new to me, but it's always, to me now it's just like, oh yes, sweet, but the first time I heard that word in a correspondence to myself, like, oh, that's gross.
Right. It feels so bad.
It feels so bad, but if we just breathe, just breathe and just let that breath move through your body. It just naturally lets the tension go. And you will realize, oh, really? That's really all it is. It's really that's it. That's that acceptance. So those
Yeah.
two kind of work hand in hand in the process of the awareness and moving into that acceptance. And the acceptance is what transmutes it.
And that's where we start to find like our playful nature again, because
Yes,
we're
and
accepting, like you were saying, we can start to let go of the pain, let go of the tension, and tap into the playfulness, which has always been there. Am I understanding this all correctly?
absolutely, and pleasure
And
or
pleasure.
orgasm. Deep, deep orgasm within every single moment it's available.
Amazing. So as we start to do all of these things, like we on this in this podcast, we're always working on a lot of awareness, right? Awareness, you said it's the first step to of anything. So if I can become aware of any tension or blocks or shame, and then start to accept it and start to tap into that playful part of myself, how does that show up in my day-to-day life? Shall I schedule a time, 4 o'clock on Friday afternoons for playful? You said it should be spontaneous, and I'm like, well, how does that even happen? So, how does playfulness exist moment to moment?
Mm. Yeah, and so it is definitely spontaneous. And again, like one of the most powerful things is understanding that intention is everything. We are so because we've learned that our mind is supposedly where our genius is, where it's not. We give a lot of power to our mind. So we're going, okay, playful. This is what I have done time and time again. Playfulness. Okay. What does that look like? How do I do it? Let me create a list. Let me schedule it into my life. Like you said it so beautifully, right? Like, but that's coming from really a masculine and a performance mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the feminine and the pleasure mindset, is how I put it, is really in this availability. So if you set the intention, you know what? I don't know. This sounds cool. I'm just going to start inviting it into my space. And you really set the intention. I want to experience more playfulness in my life. Again, you will be given opportunity. And it's really about, once again, the awareness of that opportunity. Maybe you are at your computer and you all of a sudden kind of feel like, you know what, I just kind of need to like step away for a moment. And maybe you just take a little walk, and you're breathing and you're not really necessarily being playful, but that is like one of the first steps. is just that listening to, just step away for a moment, just move out of this part of where you're, performing and you're doing and you're working. Just step back and just be available to what wants to arise. Okay, I'm just to step back, get up, walk around, breathe, and just kind of look around and be present in the moment. Ah, wow. Oh, I feel so good. Like I just got blisslet with that. Woo.
I love this word that you're using, available, because when I think about it, when I sit with that and then I think, oh, playfulness is available to me. You're saying it's not just available to us. We have to be available to it. Like we have to invite that in. It's mutual availability between us and that energy, the spontaneity, the pleasure of play, the pleasure of sensation, sensualness, um, and not just recognizing on an intellectual level that it is available out there, but being available in our own energies to allow it to come. I don't know. I just thought like that's just hit me. I'm like, oh, that's a two-way street. Like when you're saying being available, it is available, but being available, extending that invitation to that kind of energy to the universe, saying, I'm here, I'm open, I'm ready. And then that starts to present itself in life. And I feel like I just had like a little moment. So sorry for that kind of long speech, but I was like, hold on. I think I know where I might be going wrong. And that's just so interesting. And I wonder, this is a question, when if you find that you're feeling available for playfulness and then you shut it down, like how much damage does that do? Because I know that I've done that in the past. I can like think of moments where I felt really like moved to do something, and then I had like social programming that was like, don't do that, don't do that. Like, are we causing our nervous system damage? Are we causing our energy system damage? And maybe that's like nobody wants to talk about it, but I'm very curious.
Yeah, you're definitely solidifying that trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're solidifying that, like, nope, that part of me is just not safe. And one of my clients, she works in a space where she's in a corporate environment, and she has a lot of energy around expressing herself. And it's kind of come through in how you said, where there's been times where she's had a very strong intuitive hit that she's meant to kind of say something that's out of the box, you know, that isn't like, this is what we do. And she initially wasn't taking those steps. And what the reflection was is she was not being seen. And this was a deep trauma for her. Not being seen, not being seen. And she's a genius. She's very, very intellectual. She's very, very intelligent, and she does great work. But she was always like, why am I not seen? Why am I not seen? And it was because in these moments where there was this desire of expression, because playfulness is our expression, our innocence expressing through us, our love expressing through us, our creativity expressing through us. Those moments where she'd be like, nope, that's not safe. And then she would experience the who you are is just not authentic, and you're not being seen. And so as she started to give herself permission, even though it was scary for her, like what's about to come out of my mouth, we practiced a lot out of scenarios. But then she started giving herself permission at work. Wow, people would like turn to her. All of a sudden people were reaching out to her. All of a sudden she was seen.
Hmm. That's such a strong human desire too, is to be seen for who you really are. But
But
essentially,
how
we
can we
can't
be
be seen.
seen? Yeah.
Yeah, how can we be seen for who we are if we're unwilling to let it out and allow it to be seen? Again, I think we're back to that sort of two-way street. If you were going to say, here is something that you, Sarah, uh, is this an asking for a friend situation? Or, listener, if you are interested in bringing more playfulness into your life, is it just a matter of putting that intention into the universe? Is there something that makes it a little bit easier, or is it just a practice, a skill that we develop over time?
It's really about the willingness, and then I will invite all listeners to own the fact that they are highly intuitive. Most
Yes.
women and people in general do not trust their own intuition. So they don't think that they're intuitive, but they are. And if you invite it in and you say, okay, I want to experience this, you will get those hits that you said, Sarah, where you think, oh, I feel like I should. And then it's just about the willingness to take that action. And it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes you'll be able to take the action, sometimes you won't.
Yeah.
And it's not about like, oh, I didn't do it and I'm a bad person and I'm not. It's just like, okay, I saw in that moment that I was invited to step back or to move into different space and I wasn't able to. Okay, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then next time, okay, look, I was invited into it and I was able to take action. And it's just about more awareness, more awareness, more awareness. So really, it's really about that intention and that invitation, and then allowing yourself to go through the process of opening. Allow yourself the process, because it's not just like, blah, I'm open and I'm playful all of a sudden and my life has shifted. Although it can happen that way.
Sure. Sure. But I think,
Usually,
yeah, it's a slower process than that. Right. And, but, yeah, I also feel like it's probably not like a check. Okay, done. Opened up heart center. And that task is complete, right? It's more ongoing than that, in my experience. Anyway, I'm so interested in this definition of playfulness, because I think maybe like a lot of people was like, well, playfulness is when you dance. Playfulness is when you skip. Like playfulness has to look a certain way, but it isn't necessarily going to look a certain way necessarily.
no, absolutely
And
not.
every time I do one of these interviews and I learn so much from people, I feel like I'm just processing everything like on air. So it's, yeah, I'm really interested in this concept of adults being playful and recognizing that that's going to look different in everybody, and that's going to express itself in various forms of creativity, physical movement.
Yeah,
Very.
I mean, playfulness could be like creating food for yourself in that moment that is like really joyous. Like if you're somebody who likes to create food, right? Playfulness can be like, in this moment, I'm going to step away and like, ooh, what do I want to play with as far as food goes, right? Like, oh, like I just bought this the other day, and oh, this is like really exciting me right now, right? It's that lit up. Like what lights me up right now? What
It's
lights
almost
me up? What feels magnetic?
finding joy in whatever it is that you're working with in the moment, right? Where play, my
Yeah,
definition
because
of play, like in my head, is so feels so narrow, but when if I open it up to what's bringing me joy in this present moment,
yes.
I think I can understand the concept of playfulness with a little bit more of a broad stroke. That's
Yeah,
really
I like to say like really, right now, what lights like the idea, what lights me up? When I get that kind of
what
pull back,
lights.
like, okay, drop this right now. Okay, I stop, I take a breath. Okay, what lights me up right now? And sometimes it'll be like caressing myself, just like, oh, I love you so much, and we might not think that that's playful, but I guarantee if you really understand the energy of playfulness, you will see how absolutely playful it is. And you're just playing with yourself. You're engaging in life with yourself.
Oh my gosh, I can't, like, right this moment, I can't think of anything more important than doing that. Engage, just like engaging in life with yourself. What are you doing if you're not doing that? Like,
Yeah.
that's freaking amazing. Okay, I'm so interested. Alara, what else? Is there anything else that I should know or that we should know about playfulness, about opening our or lighting up our creative centers? Um, what any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that this is really the one of the first steps to really opening your nervous system up to pleasure and orgasm. Because we think of, just like you think of playfulness in a narrow way, we think of orgasm in a narrow way. We think of orgasm to be sexual and just in these moments, but orgasm and pleasure is available in every single moment. So play, as you engage in it more and more, starts to open to be deeply pleasurable.
Right.
So it's this journey of like engaging with the aliveness that life truly has to offer. And I want to say your genius, because each person is uniquely a genius, a unique and incredible, brilliant genius. And if you are a person speaking to the listeners who has ever thought like, I feel like there's more to my life, there's more to me, like I feel like there's a part of me that I am not accessing or I am not really, bringing to the table, that's your genius. And this playfulness, this conversation we're having today is a way to start that journey of finding out who you are and your genius.
Well, I guess I better get started. That sounds great. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend that everybody follow you on Instagram. I follow you there, and you're just filled with fun, wonderful ideas and things like that. But if people want to know more about you or what you do, would you be willing to share your contact info, like a website or anything with us?
Yeah, absolutely. People can reach me at alarasage.com, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at,
Oh,
Alara Sage.
perfect.
And
I will put all of that in the show notes so that it's easy for people to find. Well, thank you so, so very much for sharing all of that with us today. I feel like I have so much to think about and figuring out new ways to engage with my own life with myself. I'm going to go back and listen to this interview and write down that quote. That was amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. This was lovely, and I just appreciate you so much.
yeah, thank you, Sarah. And I love how receiving you are because you say that you process during the sessions, and that's because you're really receiving the information. And I hope listeners are, really taking that from you, that to really receive information is to process and actually transform in that very moment. So I just want to congratulate you and celebrate you.
Thank you so much. That's very kind. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.